When Vegeta first came to Earth, he kept going on and on about being a prince or an elite or whatever. I just remember how nasty his attitude was.
Now he's a father of two and fights alongside Goku. Wow!
You and Goku were really positive influences on him.
Hi guys, DN Neo here, and as you just heard and seen, we are going to be talking about Vegeta, specifically Scouter. Now, there's a lot to cover with Vegeta. Just like with Saiyan Saga, with Frieza, there's a lot to cover. So let's try and dive into this, and I'm going to try and do as much as possible in this video. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay guys, so as I said, there is a lot to cover in today's video. So, when it comes down to Vegeta, and the first time we meet him, it's very clear that Vegeta is the villain of it. It's very clear that Vegeta is here to cause chaos, and by the end of his time on Earth, it's very clear that Vegeta, even though Goku kind of spares his life with Krillin and with the sword, that Vegeta hasn't changed his ways yet. That Vegeta wants to come back. He wants to defeat Kakarot, and that he's out for revenge after he's gone and healed up. So, with that being said, one thing that really kind of, I guess, appealed to me about the Vegeta character, because we don't really know anything about him apart from he's a Saiyan, and that's basically it. And he's coming to Earth, and obviously Vegeta comes with Nappa, but you know, we're talking about Vegeta today. So with that being said, Vegeta is very interesting because Vegeta kind of reminds me of like any character that kind of comes in and kind of like Vegeta is the classic villain in the fact of minions, go do my dirty work and then I'll stand here and I'll fight if needed sort of thing. And that's kind of what we see the introduction of Vegeta is. In terms of how he operates, in terms of his personality, even when, you know, he grabs Nappa, chucks him up in the air and then kills him. And it seems very interesting to me that through that, and it's only like a little bit of a scene, right? It's very quick. Vegeta picks him up by his ankle, chucks him and kills him. And it really does kind of happen that fast as well. The stage is set for, oh, okay, Vegeta is not scared to cross lines, or at least what we would perceive as lines. And the fact that Goku kind of goes, oh, okay, yeah, I've got to fight here, because if I don't, then everything's doomed. The Earth's doomed, we're all doomed, right? And one of the things that's kind of stuck in my head about that fight is the fact that Goku and Vegeta are natural, at least at this stage, natural opposites. You know, Goku doesn't want to kill. Goku, again, at least in my opinion, Goku doesn't really care about winning. He just wants to fight, and he loves fighting. Vegeta fights to win. Vegeta fights to kill. Vegeta fights for power. Vegeta fights to hopefully one day overthrow Frieza. Where Goku's had none of that throughout his life. Again, at least in my opinion. And it seems to me that Vegeta comes at a stage in his life when, he's been roaming around the galaxy and he's been, in and out, and he's been doing Frieza's bidding at this point for years, it seems. And he kind of gets this, at least in my opinion, he gets this dosage of reality. And I think when he kind of loses the fight, originally anyway, and then transforms into the giant ape form. And again, we see a new form here. We see that Saiyans can transform. Now, people who had watched Dragon Ball already knew this, but this was the first time in Z that we had seen this, that Saiyans can transform. They have this ability. Oh no, sorry, I just remembered. That's not strictly true because Gohan does it. So not true. But I guess this is the first time that we see a Saiyan transform and have control over it, and is able to use it for combat purposes, rather than a transformation that cannot be controlled, and, it kind of causes chaos. So, yeah, I think Vegeta as a character is very basic. Again, he's kind of he's kind of the minion of the big evil, but when he's on his own, he likes to think of himself as that big, all powerful thing, right? And then after all that, and after he's been forced, humble pie is kind of shoved down his throat at that point. He goes back, goes to heal, and then we get to the Namek saga, or the Frieza saga. And one thing that's interesting about that is, and I know it's kind of circumstances, but there are many opportunities within that period on Namek that Vegeta could have killed Gohan and Krillin. Now, I know there was kind of time-sensitive stuff going on at the time, and I get that. But let's face it, Vegeta has enough power to kind of blast and just kill, right? Let's be honest, he has enough power at that point to do that, but he doesn't. And I don't know if that's because of Kakarot and the other Z Warriors, or just that kind of thing in the back of his head of, well, Frieza's here, and I'm screwed. If this doesn't work, because Vegeta's an intelligent fighter, right? Goku kind of just goes on a whim. Vegeta's quite an intelligent fighter when he's not being prideful and when he's not letting his anger rule him. He's quite an intelligent fighter. And I think that, I used to perceive the Namek saga or the Frieza saga that was the turning point. The fact that he wasn't going around killing Gohan and Krillin at the first sign that he notices them, and he kind of just leaves them be for a little bit until they piss him off, obviously. And then he goes back to rageful Vegeta and prideful Vegeta. But there is kind of this thing in my head where spending time on Earth, spending time with Bulma, when at the very end of the Freezer arc, but it seems to me that change it doesn't happen on planet Namek, but there is that kind of change. And that scene where, and I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's a really important scene, especially for a cartoon, for an anime, for if it was kind of a live action film or whatever, people would be clamoring at that scene, and people don't, and I don't know why. But, well, I guess because it's animated and all that. But, Vegeta, when he's lying in the dirt, Frieza has done the finger beam, and kind of puts an end to Vegeta, and with his last breath kind of tells Goku a bit of history about the Saiyans, tells Goku about the fact that Frieza's kind of used him as a pet almost all these years, and he kind of reels off all this stuff, right? And then I don't know, and here's the other thing as well, like, can I say that Goku doesn't turn Super Saiyan without Vegeta? No, because I think that's sparked by what Frieza has done, and the fact that he sees Krillin die. I think that's what truly sparks it. But I think Goku realizing his Saiyan pride is because of that, or not Saiyan pride, but just he is a Saiyan, and that kind of acceptance, I guess, or at least beginning of acceptance, is because of that moment with Vegeta. I don't think that was the reason why Vegeta did it, but I think that is part of what happened, honestly. And the fact that, Goku turns around and says, "You were a prideful warrior, and you still told me this." And, there's that whole moment where it kind of shifts, and they just kind of see each other as Saiyans, rather than, like, rivals, or, like, battle power, or, like, whatever, right? Like, the fact that Vegeta has memories with his people, the fact that Goku doesn't, and was raised on Earth, like, all of that is kind of, like, either, like, set on an equal playing field, or just destroyed and taken to the side. The fact that it's that moment, at least in my opinion, that Vegeta is the catalyst of that, is absolutely amazing, in my eyes. And again, that speech of, we can see the tears. We pretty much know Vegeta's done. He's dead. He's going. And I don't know. It just, I think, I don't think that Vegeta as a character, that if the evolution hadn't happened with Vegeta, that moment means anything. Like, the same animations, the same speech, if we don't see that kind of growth within Vegeta, I don't think that moment means anything. Because I don't think that's Vegeta trying to help Kakarot at that point. I honestly don't. I just think it's Vegeta realizing, I'm going to die, and just that swell of emotion kind of bursts out, right? I don't necessarily think it's to do with anything else for Vegeta. But one thing that really kind of caught me with all this was the fact that, we also see about, kind of technical stuff to do with Saiyans. The fact that, if they fight to the very near death and then kind of get healed up, they're stronger. And all of that starts to come into play. And I don't think we necessarily get that spelled out for us, the audience, without Vegeta. And I don't think that kind of, without seeing that Vegeta is willing to kill, that he's an evil SOB, at least when we meet him first, and that time period where we see small tiny changes, I don't think we get, as an audience, I don't think we get the reaction when we see Vegeta on Earth. Because if we didn't get all of that, it would be, oh, the Vegeta, like, the Earth's doomed. Like, Vegeta's coming in, and he's just gonna kill everyone, right? Like, we're all done. And remember, the gang doesn't know what's happened to Goku. So, at that point, like, Vegeta has every opportunity, and he doesn't. And I know we don't necessarily get like minute for minute time of what's going on. But it's really curious to me the fact that Vegeta doesn't do that. And even if we just come up with our own, we presume what was going on at that time, Vegeta chooses not to go on a rampage on Earth, because who's going to stop him? Honestly, I mean, maybe Piccolo and Gohan, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't know, guys. I just think that the Frieza arc was really important for several things. The first Super Saiyan we see on screen, the change in Gohan, the change in Vegeta, the change in Piccolo, or the final not the final change in Piccolo, but that full confirmation that yes, Piccolo is here to help Gohan and help the Z Fighters. And that's another thing that just popped into my head, actually. The fact that Piccolo's full transformation kind of is there, and we can see it, and the start of Vegeta's starts. So it's kind of an overlap of Piccolo is now confirmed. He's fighting with the Z Fighters. There's no risk of him being an asshole, or at least like with what we see anyway. And then like Vegeta's turnover starts, and there's kind of these overlaps, and that's really beautiful to me. That's like really beautiful to me. That like that's kind of how the timeline works, right? Yeah, I don't know, guys. It's just something that just popped into my head, and it's kind of really beautiful. And then by the end of Z, we see that Vegeta kind of, much kind of like Piccolo, yes, he keeps his own personality as much as Piccolo keeps his own personality. But Vegeta, by the end of Z, is kind of, yes, he's a hero of Earth, and he's here to try and protect it. He's here to try and help it. And I don't know about the other Z Fighters. He at least stands them. He at least puts up with it and realizes sometimes he needs their help, even if it is just for a second, right? And I'm sure I will love to get into the speech that Vegeta does at the end of Z, and most of you probably already know what I'm talking about. But going back, so I love this overlap, right? That Piccolo's completely, or at least it seems like completely overturned, right? And Vegeta's is starting. And there's something really beautiful about that, at least in my mind. But yeah, I think Vegeta's an awesome character. I really do. I wish Vegeta had gotten more moments. I know there's always that thing of Goku and Vegeta, but I do wish he had gotten more moments. But he does have some beautiful moments. And some of the strongest moments, I want to say. Not in terms of like fights or like evolution in power or anything, but just some of the deepest moments actually within the series. And I'm excited to kind of dive into all of that. Yeah, Scout of Vegeta, as he's commonly referred to, an interesting character. And I think, I truly do think that Vegeta kind of, what we see in, at least on Namek, it starts on Namek, in my opinion, that, like, what we see there, and then what we see going forward, is kind of this beautiful arc of someone having to learn themselves, letting go of their same pride, letting go of the fact that he's not the strongest and Kakarot is stronger than him, letting go of the fact that, seeing himself superior to the human race and actually has a child with Bulma and feels protective of Bulma. You know, just a beautiful, beautiful character and a beautiful, beautiful arc, despite how much he runs his mouth about his pride. But hey, it's Vegeta. You know, we can't ask for too much, can we? But yeah, guys, that's where I'm going to end it here. Yeah, I'm kind of glad that I got the bulk of the main characters done. Or at least what I perceive as the main characters. Yeah, I'm gonna sit down and think about what I want to do next. So yeah, see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.